Now that we've got the control rig done, we want to go through and make sure that we do all the constraints for the Orient like bones. Now what the Orient like bones will do is they will help deform our mesh correctly and keep us from having those nasty looking rubber hose arms and knees, and so we'll go through and do those bones. So with our will rig underscore 04 that we ended up with, we're going to click on the object properties, go down to user properties, and under constraints right click on that and say new property on off. Now right click it, rename, and call it Cosmetic Constraints, and then right click on it and say new relationship. Now when we go in here, we can see all the bones. Let's go down here to our relationships folder, and this one is our control constraints. I don't want to see that anymore, so I'll just shrink it down there and do that. Okay, now let's start at the foot and just work our way up. So now let's go down here to the foot. This is an Orient like bone, so we want to click it, right click on it, new constraint, Orient like, toes left, and change it to 50%. This one here, new constraint, Orient like the foot, 50%. Go up the leg and the knee, new constraint, Orient like calf, 50%. Now here's where it gets a little bit tricky. In the thigh, what we want it to do is we want these to orient like the thigh, so we want them to move with the thigh at a certain percentage, but we also want them to roll at a certain percentage, so when the knee rolls out, the splines or the geometry that is close to the hip doesn't barely move, but the ones that are out on the leg do. So here's how we're going to do that. Let's go into our side view 6 on the numpad. First of all, we're going to set just the Orient likes on them. So click on this one here, and let's do 90%. So we right click on it, new constraint, Orient like, choose the thigh left, and click 90%. Okay, now click the one right below that, 45%, new constraint, Orient like, thigh left, 45%. And the last one here, new constraint, Orient like, thigh left, 10%. Okay, so now what we want to do is not only do we want them to orient like it, but we also want them to roll like it. So one thing we need to do before we go any further is we need to go into the Orient like, and we need to turn off store roll. That way it gets its roll from the roll like constraint and not from the Orient like constraint. So turn it off, and then while it's re-highlight it, click new constraint, roll like, thigh left, 90%. Now we'll adjust these in a minute here. Right click or click on your next bone down, right click on it, new constraint, roll like, thigh left, 45%. Oops. Okay. Then the other one here, click this one, new constraint, roll like, thigh left, 10%. But make sure that you go through these and turn off the store roll. Okay. Alright, so before we go any further, let's go in and test it in our actions. Let's close that window, or double click for a new action, go to our side view, grab the control foot, and before we do that we have to turn on the one that we just did, so you have to turn this to on. Go down here, grab the control foot, and now move it up. Now you can see that the mesh at the knee deforms. This one is orienting like this one at 50%, so as I rotate it, you'll see it move slightly. So that way I keep the volume of the knee here. Let's roll the foot. You can see how the ankle does the same thing, like that. And then the toe, let's grab the control toe and rotate it up, and you can see how this middle spline does the same thing. Now, one thing that we can do is we can adjust these over here. Like say I went, let's see, where's the toes left? I can click on it and then click and drag here, and as you can see in the action it's updating as I do it, so I can set it to the exact one that I want. Maybe that's all I want. I don't necessarily want 50%, I just want 35%. can drag it out so I can see what it's going to do. Now this is an action. I'm not doing anything inside the action. I'm actually changing the relationship and seeing it update in the action. So I can do the same with the knee. So the Orient-like calf right here, I can change this, and let's zoom in on it so we can see. Do I want it at 50, or do I want it more, or do I want it less? I think I'm just going to go with 50. Okay. And then the toes, I'm going to switch that just back to 50. We'll leave everything at the default the way it is right now. Now, as you can see here, in the thigh, all these extra thigh bones are working here. You can see here, here's one, here's the 10%, the 45%, and the 90%. If I go into my model, go up to Window, hit Tile horizontally, and now my model's right here, and my action is right here, and I can grab the bones inside the thigh. Let's hide the control bones here. So let's go up here. Bones. Let's shrink the main down, control main. Let's select that and go all the way down to the bottom. Shift select it and hold down Shift until they're all selected, and then hit J so they disappear. Okay. So now I can go to my front view here and I can say this bone, the Orient-like thigh left, 90%, I want that to be right here, and you can see it just updated right here. Okay, and then the 45%, I want it to be these right here and right here. Let's go into shaded mode and we can see it a little bit better. Hit Shift and click the CPs that you want. Okay. And then 10%. Let's go here. Okay. So now you can see in our action, I actually want this one to be more than 45%. So I'm going to go up here and say Orient-like thigh left and drag it up till it looks about right. About there. Let's go 75%. Okay, and then the roll-like, we'll deal with that in a second here. But let's go to the 10%. Instead of 10%, I think we want it to, and well, before you do that, the Orient-like thigh left 45%, let's go up and actually rename that to 75%. And it will change everything down the line. So now if I go down here, it'll be 75%. So, but that way I can see what it's named and how much it's doing. Now the 90%, I think I want it more than that, so I'm going to drag it up about there. Let's do 95. Okay. Alright, and then the 10%, well, let's go and rename this 95%. The 10%, let's go down here. Here it is. Let's see what's going to happen here. I think we want it about there. So let's do 30%. Okay. So now you can see how, let's make sure that these aren't following anything. There. So now you can see how those bones are being affected by that relationship. Let's turn this around and check it here. There. Okay, and we'll fix those with what's called Smart Skin later on, but for right now I think that's going to work just fine. Okay. So what did we do that? On the 10% we did 30%. Okay. So let's rename it 30%. Okay. Let's save this one. Save as Rig 05. Okay, so we've got the leg done with the cosmetic bone. So let's close this action and delete it, just so we're not messing with anything. So delete that action. Then just maximize this screen again, and then double click on your cosmetic constraints relationship, and we'll go up the spine. First of all, we need to unhide the control, actually no, let's leave it just the way it is, with no control bones visible. Okay, so now let's go up the spine. We don't need the spine, but we have this neck, so let's do new constraint, orient like neck, 50%. Then let's go up here and save this, orient like head, 50%. Okay, and that's all we need for that. Go to the top view and we can do the arm. Now the bicep is going to work exactly like the leg, or exactly like the thigh. So we click on it here, say new constraint, orient like bicep left, 85%. This one, right click, new constraint, orient like bicep left, 50%. This one right here, new constraint, orient like bicep left, 10%. Now go through all of these real quick and turn off their store roll. Okay. Now go through them again. So this one here, new constraint, roll like bicep left, 80% or 85%. New constraint, roll like bicep left, 50%. And new constraint, roll like bicep left, 10%. Okay, let's go to elbow here. Now this one right here, orient like forearm left, 50. So new constraint, orient like forearm left, 50%. Now these here in the forearm, well, first before we do those, let's do this very end one, orient like and roll like. Same thing with the bicep. I want to first of all do an orient like the hand. Oops, it gave me none here. So I'm going to click on the none and get the eyedropper tool. Well, it looks like we have a hierarchy issue. So let's go up here. Let's go to our model. Hit 5 to go into the top view. So this bone right here. Okay, let's put the hand left above that. And let's attach it, make sure it's attached to its parent. Oh, see, there it was. There we go. So now I should be able to go back in here, select this one here. And orient like forearm left, 50%. Oh, no, this is the one I want. This is actually a, I want to drop it back here and then check it, and it needs to be attached to parent. So now I should, it's not letting me do the hand for some reason. Oh, I know why. Let's delete this and let's close this window down. Sometimes you'll find out that sometimes you'll see that for some reason an Animation Master, when you open up a new relationship, what it does is it opens up a temporary action to do those things in, and sometimes it will get confused and it will start putting those values that you do inside this action and not up in your relationship, and then you'll get some kind of screwed up things. So let's go back here to Cosmetic Constraints, double click it, go to our top view. Now if I click on this hand, see, it's still, something's going strange here. Well, it won't let me do orient like the hand, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say orient like the control hand left. There we go. Okay, so orient like the control hand left. And let's look at the hierarchy just for a second here. I've got my bicep, my forearm left, and my hand left. I'm going to drop that there. And all these are children of the forearm left. right here. And then this is child of the bicep left. So I've got it in the right spot, but for some reason it's not allowing me to do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just not going to worry about that. I'll do, I've got it orienting like the control hand left, and I want to turn the store roll off, but I want it to orient like it only 50%. And then what I want to do is I want to say new constraint roll like, go down here, control hand left 100%. Okay, so now it should work just fine. Now these ones on the forearm, if you look here, each one of them controls a spline, and what these do is they are going to orient exactly like the forearm, but they're going to roll like the hand. So I'm going to select this, say new constraint roll like the hand at 20%. This one, new constraint roll like the hand at 40%. This one, new constraint roll like the hand 60%. Now you can see what I'm talking about here. This is my temporary action, and it's doing all these in here, but it's not translating them up into my relationship. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click off of this, close down this relationship, and you can see how it didn't transfer them into my relationship folder. What I'm going to do is I'm going to save this model, and then close down, and then restart, and then go again from there. So we'll pick up when I restart. Okay, so I just restarted, and I'm back to here. So let's go back to Will Rig 05. Open up this user properties constraints, right click on Cosmetic Constraints, and hit Edit Relationship. So it got everything in there except for my hand. So let's now it's asking me for orient like thigh left 75 blah blah blah. Should be in there. And it looks like we might have to do it over again. So I'm going to do exactly what I did on the thigh before, and I'll pause it while I do that, and then I'll come back when it's ready to go. Okay, while I was looking around to find a fix for the problem, I found that the clavicle was not a child of the sternum, and so it was a child of the spine, so the sternum was just kind of hanging on itself. So the clavicle needed to be dragged on top of that. Now what I'm doing here is I'm looking through here, so I've got my hand, and this one is a child of the forearm, so it stays right there. Okay, and this one is a child of the bicep, and this one is a child of the clavicle. So all the hierarchy is correct. Let's make sure those are all the fingers. I think all the hierarchy is correct. So now that I've gone through and checked those bones just to make sure that the hierarchy was okay, before I go any further too, let's check and make sure that they are all attached to parent. So the hand needs to be attached to the forearm. The forearm needs to be attached to the bicep. Bicep does not need to be attached to the clavicle. Clavicle does not need to be attached, and the sternum needs to be doesn't have to be attached to the spine, or to spine 6. So those look like they're all fine. Let's go to hand and just check this. Not attached to parent. Okay, so I think we're good. So let's go back here. Now what we need to do is I went through and I fixed these orient-like thigh bones right here so that they were working again. And then I also went and I redid orient like the control hand left, and I need to right click on it, new constraint roll like, let's go down here, control hand left. Let's do it in the window. I don't know why it won't let, it's not putting it up there. Just a second. Okay, what I had to do is I had to close down the relationship window so that there were no more temporary actions. Open it back up again, click on it in the window without doing anything before. So I had to click in here and then I right clicked on it. If this highlighted, that's where it needs to be, but if it highlights down here, that's where it's not supposed to be. So I got that all working right. So I've got the thigh, the hand, and the biceps all working right. Let's just check these real quick. Okay, so it looks like those are just fine. So now I need to do the hand, or the forearm rolls. So go into your top view and select this one and say new constraint, roll like, hand left 20%. This one here, this one here, roll like, hand left 40%. This one here, roll like, hand left 60%. And this one here, roll like, hand left 80%. Okay. So that should be good with all of our Orient like bones. So let's close down this relationship. Then let's save him. So right click, save. Let's open up a new action and show the control bones. So just click Control Main and hit the star key on the pad, or on the numpad. So select Control Main and hold down Shift until they're all highlighted, and then hit J. And then you can select Control Main and just hide that so it's not in the way. Okay, so let's grab the control hand, go into shaded mode, control hand, move it. Yep, looks like it moves the hand. But let's go back to our model and we can assign the points in that we need. Let's just do this for the hand real quick. Whole thing. Okay, then this for the Orient like. It's right there. This one is for those. Kind of have a hard time seeing. That's one thing I don't know that I like in Animation Master, is the opacity of the bones. It's very hard to see where they're at. But you can select the bone here, like this one is my elbow, and then select the splines. 85. Let's select all these. Go into shaded mode so you can kind of see what it looks like. Select all these. Back into wireframe. In shaded mode, you can kind of tumble around and make sure you've got the ones that you want. Hold down Shift and click the CPs to make sure you got the right ones. Okay, and then 50. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to select this spline, hit the comma, hit hide, go into bones mode, select the bone that I want. It happens to be this one right here. Or no, not that one. Where is it here? 50. And just select all those. Go back into model mode, unhide everything. Actually, that was the wrong spline. Well, let's go back into modeling mode. This one, comma, H. Go into model mode. And go up to that Orient like bicep left 50. Select that whole thing. Go into modeling mode again. Select this whole spline, H. Go into bone mode. And then you want the 10%. That's the one we want. So then hit H, and then this one right here, hit the comma, hit the H, bones, 85%, that's this one right here. Okay, so now if I go back into here, if I go to my top view, I want all these to just follow the bicep, just like that. Okay. So let's do this real quick. Go into wireframe mode. The clavicle, I want to handle all these points. but I don't want them on the back. I just want them on the front, but that's okay. I'll leave them right there for now. Let's go back into our 2, go into our action, and now if I rotate my hand here, oops. Rotate my elbow. You can see how the bicep right here is deforming quite nicely, or the shoulder is deforming quite nicely. But my hand, for some reason, my control hand, that's the hand. I need the control hand. Let's make sure it's showing. Let's clear this. There we go. Okay, control hand, here we go. Go to our front view, grab the control hand, move it up, looks good. Move it down, looks good. You can see how that Orient-like in the wrist is working pretty good. It's a little bit weird when we go all the way up this way, but it's something that we can just deal with. Now if we hit clear, take the hand, or the control hand, and roll it, you can see how the forearm will roll with it. You see that? So if technically if I built him with his palm facing forward like this, I should get pretty much a straight line this way, which I do in all directions. But since I modeled him this way, I've got this twist of his forearm. How it kind of spirals down. That's the way it actually goes. The muscles actually move that way. Now let's do this. Let's go right here, and then let's go over to these rolls and start adjusting them. Let's put this at 15. Let's go to 40, and let's go up and rename that. So this is 15. Go down to 40, and then maybe not quite as much. So maybe 30. Let's go up here, change it to 30. Okay, back down here to 60. Probably about there. That's about 47. Let's go 48. Okay, so let's go up here and rename it 48. And let's go down back here to 80. And right about there, 65. So now, let's go back up and rename it real quick. 65. Okay, so now when I grab this and I roll it, oops. Yeah, that looks a lot better. And remember, this Orient-like in his wrist, this one's actually rolling like at the control hand at 100% and orienting like it at 50%. So you get a good blend when he rolls or when he bends his hand or rotates it down, and then also when it turns, it gives a good adjustment there. So let's clear it. Okay, so let's go up and save him. Save as Will Rig 05. Now if I grab it and I move it, you can see how his arm is deforming properly. And the bicep, or the shoulder actually looks really pretty good in the way it's deforming. I may want to do a little bit more adjustment to it, but that may come later in smart skinning. But you can see how his shoulder keeps its volume. Let's go to the front view here. Shift C, clear, grab the control hand, and just drag it down. Shoulder keeps its volume pretty good, and that's good. That looks really nice. But let's try and rotate it here and make sure. So grab the elbow, just rotate it along its y-axis. Now that's another bug that I don't know what it's from in Animation Master, but when you use a manipulator, a lot of times you will not be able to see what you're doing. So it looks pretty good. It looks like it's deforming really well. Let's grab it one more time, move it back. Okay, looks pretty good. So let's go to our side view. Let's grab our spine bone here, rotate it down. Yeah, it looks like that's doing fine. That's doing fine. Oops. That's doing fine. Okay. So now that we have all our bones in and our cosmetic constraints, we need to start hiding those. So in the next tutorial, what we'll do is we will start hiding ones that we don't need to see, and we will do that in a relationship also. So I'm just going to save him, and I think we're done for the cosmetic constraints.